Warning, if you're not a fan of language that packs a punch, now's the time to tune out. But if you're ready for some real talk, stick around and enjoy the ride.
Hey, friend.
Hey, good morning.
It's so good to have you and I here again. Oh,
Yes.
You know what? Today is the last episode of season 1.
Oh my gosh.
I know, right? I feel like, wow. I didn't think about that
I know.
just this moment.
We've had so many good conversations already. So
I was thinking about some of the stuff we talked about, and I feel like we've covered a lot, but not gonna lie, I got some things next season. I already have some people in mind for us to reach out to. I've already got some ideas for what next season, our topic wise, what we'll tackle.
Yep.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we've done this. This has been an exciting process, right?
Agreed. Yeah. It's a cool place to be creative and have these, I think they're meaningful to me. I hope they're meaningful to other people, these conversations, and just to spend time with you and your brilliant, lovely heart. It's so wonderful. So.
Right, I feel the same way. In this podcast, I think we have covered being the work and wellness podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
We brought people in to talk about their experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And so today, we're really going to focus in on work and not the way people think, right?
Yeah.
It might be a little surprising. We will see. But yeah, so today we're going to talk a little bit about work, the kinds of conversations that I expect that we'll have today. I want to see us go outside of the usual definition of just, I go to my 9 to 5. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I really want for us to take a grander view, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's jump into it.
My name is Tramel D. Jones, and I am a strategic career coach.
I am Bonnie Scott. I'm a licensed professional counselor in Texas.
For women and marginalized communities, work is hard.
Especially at this point in the pandemic and in our lives.
There's such a toxic workplace in most jobs.
Or you're bringing your own trauma history and making decisions from that place.
From the experiences that we're both having individually, now we get to join forces and help the world not have to go through those same pitfalls, right?
We're going to do it with kindness and love for each other and all the women out there doing this hard stuff.
Welcome to the Work and Wellness Podcast.
I always tell my clients, obviously, as a career planning professional, I get excited about applications, resumes, cover letters, all of those things. But I think that behind closed doors, people don't understand how many times I am talking to people about the fact that they do not have their dream job.
Yeah.
I think people worry about, it's not my dream job. And they're wondering, should I even put my time and effort into it? But what I always tell people is, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Work shouldn't define you as a person.
Right.
So it does not need to be everything.
Yeah.
Right? Have you ever had experiences where maybe you were at a job and you absolutely knew it was not your dream job?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Did I ever tell you about the time that I worked for 3 days at a sporting goods store when I was in college?
This is a great time for you to tell me. So, hey, tell me.
So it was my first year in college. I was a freshman, and I had always worked through high school, right? And I wasn't working yet in college. And I thought, man, I just really got to find a job. And what am I going to do? And so I happened to be in the sporting goods store in this small town where I lived. And so I filled out an application okay, sure, I can sell tennis shoes to people or whatever. Sure. Is that what they wanted me to sell? It is not. They wanted me to sell hunting rifles and handguns. And I was like,
I think you got to give a person a heads up on that.
Well, yeah. And I am not a person who has any experience with firearms. I still don't today. And I definitely didn't when I was a 19-year-old idiot. So I don't understand. So I thought, I'm really going to try because I need the money. I'm really going to try to do this job. And the first time some man was standing there talking to me about like, well, do you think this is the best ammo to like shoot this animal? And I was like, you know what? I got to go. This is not for me.
I don't know, sir. Do a shoot? That sounds good.
So yeah, I mean, that's maybe an extreme example of not my dream job, but for sure, we've all had those places where we're like, how the hell did I end up here? What decision?
Here? I remember I worked for, in college, I worked for a Walmart doing stocking. I unloaded the trucks, which is a wild experience. It's hot as I don't know what back there. And they expect you to move really, really fast. So I was like pulling stuff out of the truck, and then you organize it to different sections, and then there's different teams that take it out to the floor and put it on the shelves. So they do this work very late in the evening. I think my shift was like 6 to 12 midnight, right? Mm-hmm. So 12 midnight would come. I have an 8 a.m. class, and I'm like, all right, well, that was great. And it was already excruciating. Mm-hmm. And one of the supervisors came to me and was like, oh, you can't leave until your entire team has put all of their product on the shelf. And I was like, you realize that these people ain't rushing because they want more time.
Yeah.
I have an 8 a.m. class. I'm not staying.
No.
So I told him, I was like, oh, no worries. Don't worry. Don't worry. No worries. Don't even worry. It's fine. I did not come back. So don't you know what? I'm going to make it real easy for you. You ain't got to worry about me leaving. Nope. I will not do that again.
No.
Done. I also had some really fun jobs. Like I worked for a company that monitors elevator phones. Mm-hmm. You're in the elevator and you get stuck and you pick up that phone. I monitored those. It was fun, but it definitely was not my dream job.
Sure.
So we all have those, right? And so I think some people think that if they are not doing the type of job that they deem to be a big shot, that there is something wrong. And I don't think that's the case. I believe that you should be investing just as much time in your personal life so that you have something exciting to go home to as you do in your job life. And in some instances, there's just not structure for everybody in this world to be doing the dream job, right? So it's important for you to assign and find purpose for the job that you have. If it's a job you love, hey, that's great. But you still need to identify what's next for you. So, you know, if we're ever in layoffs, like right now, there's a lot of job insecurity. People are worried about losing their positions with Meta and Microsoft, letting people go. There's a lot of competition right now. So you want to know the purpose of your job. Is this a thing you want to continue in? Should you invest time and attention into moving up? And if I could tell people one thing, it would be to tell them it's okay to be at jobs that are not your purpose, but maybe they just fund the insurance for your family. That's okay. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Don't you feel badly for going into that job and just needing to keep it to make sure your kids have insurance?
Yeah.
Nothing's wrong with that at all.
Hey friends, I'm Tramel. If you didn't know, I run a career planning firm called TDJ Consulting. I focus on working with high-achieving women, and you know exactly the ones I'm talking about. She's the go-to employee, she's consistent, she's reliable, and everyone goes to her for help. It usually means that she's doing her work and theirs too. But unfortunately, her bank account doesn't reflect all the extra effort that she's putting in. I help those high-achieving women leverage their wins at work to boost their salary by $10,000 to $20,000. I provide career services that build on those successes that they've already accomplished without requiring them to go back to school. If you're curious, let's talk. Schedule a free call at tdjconsulting.com.
Well, and yeah, I think this is the thing I learned from you, but I often ask people when they're struggling in a job, like, help me understand where this job fits in your career trajectory. Is it really important that we stay here and set some boundaries and do what we need to do? Or is it more important that you and I are looking at exit strategies and what are some other things that actually serve where you want to go, right? And so this job is today and it's serving whatever purpose it's serving today, but it also fits in a bigger picture of what you want your work life to be and look like over the next few years.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, my thought process, and people probably can't see it on their own, maybe with conversation they can, but I can see the through line from crap jobs to the big things.
Oh, for sure.
No matter what you do, there's always something you can help to move you to the next position, right? But a lot of people don't see that. There's this huge disparity between your corporate positions where people are being paid these large amounts of money, and then maybe your minimum wage position. And I think a lot of that is around shame, right?
Yeah.
So if you are not in your dream job and maybe you're not making as much money as you would like to, we tend to not want to go out and tell people what we do, right?
Yeah.
There's this unspoken shame around, oh, well, I'm not working a big, impressive job. So, you know, maybe I have less worth. And that's not the case.
It's not the case. And dismissing the fact that all of those jobs are interconnected, right? Yeah. None of those jobs exist in a vacuum. No one is doing C-suite level work without someone who comes and cleans the toilets. You're just not. And that's not lip service. That is a true, like, mutual, should be beneficial relationship, right? That, like, the work I do supports paying you to vacuum the floors every night, and the work you do supports me bringing in clients and making sure that everybody's comfortable. That should be a mutual beneficial thing. But there is a very clear attitude toward the people in those lower level positions that it's like, if anything, it's lip service. Oh, we're so thankful to the people below us who take care of this and that. My secretary, my assistant that answers every phone call or whatever. Yeah, fool, you wouldn't be doing any of this without that person who answers every phone call.
Exactly.
Who manages your schedule, who does all of that. It should be seen as a mutually beneficial thing. And there doesn't have to be shame in that. I'm supporting you, you're supporting me, we're doing good work. That's a good way to feel.
Yeah, I want to uplift everybody who may feel like they're in those positions where they're not in their dream job. I want them to feel like you still serve an immense amount of purpose to that organization. So you need to feel that within yourself. But I just, you know, I get very frustrated with that disparity. Corporate positions are quote unquote better, right? But let's be honest, even those in corporate positions could easily, and sometimes just one step away from working minimum wage.
Hey, this is Bonnie, and I want to take a minute to talk to you about my business, which is Mindful Kindness Counseling, LLC. It's a private therapy practice in San Antonio, Texas. It's a huge part of who I am, a huge part of my life. I'm really proud of the work that I do and the way that it reflects my values and supports my community. So I want you to know that my business is there. If you're looking for a therapist, if you're looking for a supervisor, if you're hoping for support or networking, let me know how I can support you, because there is plenty of work to go around and I want all of us to be successful. So reach me at BonnieScottLPC@gmail.com.
And people think that homeless shelters are filled with people who have mismanaged their money, are, you know, reckless individuals who
lazy,
aren't trying, don't have
incompetent.
Jobs. Thank you. But when I worked in this homeless shelter, the majority of the people who were there were families. And I'm not talking about women with kids. I'm talking about 2-parent households. So we're talking about 2 incomes. They still had jobs. But unfortunately, the cost of sustaining all of the expenses just wasn't there, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we are in these situations where financially we are one paycheck away from going broke.
And I mean, I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but I would wager a vast majority of people in the lower and middle class are in that space. Like, you miss one paycheck and you can't pay rent.
Exactly. That was a lot of the couples that I interacted with when I worked at that homeless shelter, and many of them were still out working, would leave in the morning. We would take the kids to the bus stop to make sure that they got on. We would then run daycare programs afterwards until the families got home from work. Like we really were just the interim to make sure that everything was okay. But people don't see that. People think about that when they think about that disparity. And I know that in that instance, I was working with a very small percentage of people who were able to access those resources. And when you work in that area, you know that for every person you see, there are a dozen that you don't.
Yeah.
People who are just trying to get by on their own. Maybe they are living in their car. Maybe they're still in apartments where they just don't have any utilities or whatever the case. I mean, there's a lot of situations where, people are in desperate situations because that one check didn't come through or something happened. Maybe a part of the car broke down and they had to make a decision to pay that instead of something else, and it all just kind of imploded.
Yeah.
And in those situations, you still got, let's imagine that you have kids.
Yeah.
You still have to provide. I don't know too many parents who are going to sit around and say, well, guys, let's just not eat tonight. We'll be fine. I don't know anybody like that. All the parents that I know, all the people that I know, they are going to have, some sort of a backup plan to make sure that their family's eating and are getting the minimal basic needs met, right? And I think that sometimes that happens in ways that maybe the majority of people don't even realize.
Yeah. Well, and yes, I mean, you and I have talked about this, but I'm going to bring the listeners in. What we're talking about is things like under the table work, right? Like, I fix people's cars on the side and I only take cash, or I do sex work, or I have an OnlyFans, or these kind of jobs that exist in secrecy. So yeah, people don't always think about the choices that you make to come to those places.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the things you would do for your kids. I mean, for sure. I have one kid. I'm obsessed with her. I say truly, there is nothing I wouldn't do for her. And so if the time came and I had to make that choice, I would make that choice, right? You need food in your belly. I will do what I have to do. I mean, short of like hurting someone, I'm not going to hurt someone else for that. But, I mean, and there are people who legitimately choose, right? Like they choose to do sex work, or they choose to do these under the table jobs because it fits their lifestyle and what they want and need. But either way, it's work, and we don't always talk about it.
Can we reference the book that we're talking about too? Because I can never remember the title. You've read this book. I started reading this book. The information that was shared, no lie, triggered the heck out of me. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that there was this question of, you have these individuals who are doing things that you don't deem to be respectful. Yeah. Not that it, socially people are expected to take care of their families. And so they are doing what they have to do, but because you don't see it as above board for you, then there is all this shame and guilt that you want to push and pressure onto other people.
When you want to judge those decisions, right? Like that's not the life you're living, but you want to judge that somebody has decided to start an OnlyFans?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
what's the name of the book though? Do you remember?
Yes. The name of the book we're talking about is Hood Feminism. And it's written by, let me see, Mikki Kendall.
Right.
So Hood Feminism,
That's right.
Notes from the Women That a Movement Forgot.
And we'll make sure we make those, we'll link that so that people can get a hold of that. Because the way that this was really laid out, in all honesty, really put me in a place where I had to rethink what I thought, even as a career planning professional. Now, when we worked with foster youth, I had quite a few of my clients who, people don't realize this, but a lot of foster youth are in situations where they are moved quickly, where they do not have access to all of their things for whatever reason, and they lose their ID, their birth certificate. They do not have identifiable documents, so they can't get work. So a lot of my clients would go and work at different locations, whether it be at mechanic shops, like you had mentioned, or they're working for restaurants and they're under the table. So maybe there is an establishment that should be paying some employment or some taxes for this person so that they have, you know, some kind of paycheck stuff. But instead, they tell this person, oh, well, hey, you know, don't worry, I'll pay you cash. And you can start today and I'll pay you today. Right? So they lure and prey on these individuals, and then they come back to me and they're like, well, I did a couple of jobs. When I'm asking them about their resume, they're saying, but I can't put them on my resume. And I'm like, well, why? Talk to me. What happened? Well, it was under the table. So 2 things. Number 1, I tell them to still put it on there and just say they volunteered, because there's no way you need to not represent the fact that you learned these skills and that you did this work. Second of all, I found that 99.9999999% of those individuals who were working under the table were also being abused. And I say abuse in the way of people were leveraging the fact that they were going to pay them cash to make them do either things they shouldn't have done, or they were putting them in situations where they knew legally they couldn't do with other paid employees through the books.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because jobs that you do in secret are going to be abusive. Like, if there's no oversight, there's going to be abuse. And especially if you're someone who's marginalized or doesn't have that safety net, right? Like you were saying, if you're a kid in foster care, you're 17 one day and 18 the next day, and you're just out on your own, you don't have this safety net. That maybe some states work hard to make sure people have that safety net. Texas doesn't. But you're going to have abuse in those jobs because there's no one watching and there's no power in being that person.
The thing that really kind of irks me about all these situations, of course, is the fact that, like, when we look at this situation, we're socialized to believe that the person who's doing the work is in the wrong. So they're the ones that should feel shame. Taken that under the table job. Well, how else is this person supposed to feed themselves, feed their kids? Yeah. How else were they supposed to continue living? Yeah.
Hey, podcast listener, this is Bonnie jumping in on this little break in the action to talk to you about advertising opportunities for this season of the podcast. So, my business, Mindful Kindness Counseling, is really proud to support this podcast and these conversations, both with my time, but also financially. And Tramel and I want you to know that we are open to your advertising needs as well. So if you're interested in funding a spot on the podcast, please feel free to contact us at workandwellnesspodcast@gmail.com. Bye. I feel irked. Like, who gets to decide what is work and what is not, right? Yeah. I trade literal minutes of my life for dollars from clients, right? You come to my office, I give you an hour of my time. You give me the rate that you pay. I'm literally trading minutes of my life for these dollars. Yeah. And that's acceptable work. But if I'm doing that as an exotic dancer or a person waiting tables and cleaning toilets at your local Mexican restaurant or whatever, like, that doesn't count. Yeah. But what I do counts because I have a degree. I don't think we can't make this like definitive line of, oh, this is work, but this is not, and you should feel shame about this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that we have to really
think about where that comes from, right? And why, and how it continues to be perpetuated.
Yeah. Well, and okay, so this is a leap maybe, but like, how is it that different than like an influencer culture, right? Like, influencers are the thing and they make all this big money because they're sponsored to give you glimpses of their life, to trade parts of themselves for money as a commodity. That's okay. We're all like, yeah, we love influencers, we love our TikTokers, but we don't love like our local sex workers. That
It's
is
not
ridiculous.
much of a leap, Bobby.
It's not.
It's not much of a leap.
It's not. And
work
is work.
I always talk to people about going back and thinking about the reasons why people do this. And if you go back and consider that, that's the thing you should focus on. So yes, we may have sex workers, but 9 times out of 10, if you do a deep dive into that person's life, there was a necessity. There was some kind of other situation that forced them into a situation where there was no other opportunity.
Yeah.
Same thing with our kids who were working under the table. And, you know, if we wanted to create a term for all these types of positions, that it's the secret economy, but you want them to stay a secret.
Well, and some people come to it from necessity, right? But like, there's also something very appealing about like, okay, I could drive for Uber Eats for 4 hours and make, I don't know what you would make in 4 hours. Let's say $150. Or this person on my OnlyFans is offering me $300 for an hour's worth of video of my feet. Like, I'm gonna go that direction because there's something very appealing about, okay, that's a pretty minimum amount of work on my part, and I'm going to make more money than I would out here busting my humps, delivering people's McDonald's or whatever. Like,
I really want for people to move away from the shame and the guilt and the feeling like they get to tell people what work is.
Yeah. Well, and you know, the thing that stood out to me from Mikki Kendall's book was, you know, she had this part where she was talking about like, we got to stop just like taking whatever patriarchy will give us. We're trying to work within this system, but at the end of the day, we're still just taking the scraps. Instead of fighting with each other about what is work and what is not, we should be banding together to fight the system that only gives us scraps.
Yeah. Because I believe that if we did put time and attention into creating better work experiences for people, that we would have less of these secret economy positions, even for people to be taken advantage of.
Right. Because they don't need to be secret out of shame. They are secret out of power. Yeah. They are secret out of convenience for the people who have the money. And that's not okay. We shouldn't be letting people get away with that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I feel like we're always talking about what's the actionable steps. And today, I don't necessarily have actionable steps for people in their situations, because there's no way that me as an individual can tell you what you should and shouldn't do.
Sure.
But I will say this. I want for you to take some time and think about why and where any kind of motivation of shame or guilt comes from in your position. Whatever it is, right? I also believe that there are always resources available for a myriad of things. I also want to make sure that people do not feel alone in whatever it is that they are doing or dealing with.
Yeah.
So reach out and find somebody who cares for you to see if there, are ways for you to get rid of that shame and guilt. And I'm only talking about shame and guilt. I'm not telling people what to do with their lives. I'm really
That's Beyonce's job.
I am talking about shame and guilt. But, for me, I always am, well, if we go back to what I was talking about before, find the purpose. But if we go even further, identify what's the long term, 3 to 5 years. What do you do? Think about your strengths. What are the things that you know you do better than anybody?
Well, and that's the other thing about the secret economy is that a lot of these jobs do depend on your body. And so you do need a long-term.
Yeah, because that body will fizzle out. I tell you.
What do you do when you can't wait tables anymore and you can't be on the ground doing engines and that kind of stuff? Like, it's these secret economy jobs where your body and time are commodified. They might not last forever.
And unfortunately, there's no retirement plan for those kinds of situations. So we've got to create that for you. And if that needs to be thought of.
Yeah, exactly.
I know this isn't an easy topic for a lot of people. And for those who are not in this situation and you don't know what it feels like to be specifically in this, I ask you to take a beat.
Yeah, find some empathy for people making decisions.
Yeah. Read this book.
Oh my God, yes. Everybody read this book. It will blow your damn mind.
I am telling you, I was convicted. I was triggered. I realized that was part of the problem.
Yeah.
And I'm trying very hard to identify ways for me to get back to being solution oriented with this. And that's why at this moment, I don't have a necessary solution, but I definitely want to be helpful. So whatever that means, right?
Yeah.
And as I continue to read the book and as I continue to work through some of the things we discussed, I want to be committed to being a source, a resource for people. And I hope that other people will feel the same way once they read it as well. We don't need to continue to dish out shame and guilt to people who are in the secret economy. We really need to identify what do we have to fight to make sure that people don't have to do these jobs.
Right. That moms aren't making those decisions about how to feed their kids, and dads aren't making those decisions about how to pay the rent. Teenagers are not making those decisions about how to get clothes on their back. Those are the systemic issues that we should be shaming and guilting, not the people who are doing what they gotta.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whew. All right, Bonnie. This has been not only a great conversation, but a great season.
A wonderful season. It's been so fun.
Yes.
Remember when we came up with this idea just because I was finally taking ADHD medication and I can focus on things?
I need to get some of that. I really think I might have a little ADHD because, man, I saw a meme about it and it was like, this is what your brain is like if you have ADHD. And the person goes into this skit of just all these things coming at once. And I was like, isn't that just how brains are? Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
No, but I'm very happy that we did this. I'm looking forward to us continuing. I want this to be something we continue to do because I feel like we're definitely talking about stuff that I haven't heard in the realm of work and wellness. And I want people to think about these more.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on this journey with me.
Yes, thank you for coming with me. I enjoy it so much.
All right.
Here's to season 2.
Yes, season 2.
Yes.